Hi, my name is Travis Williams. I'm owner and lead counselor for True Impact Counseling Services. We're based in Raleigh, North Carolina. And as you may or may not know, April is Stress Awareness Month. And I'm very excited to start a new series dealing specifically with stress. And I thought that today we would start off with just some thoughts on stress to help you frame and maybe look at stress in a way that helps you identify what's stressing you out, as well as an opportunity just to become more aware of stress being present. So as always, I have to put out a disclaimer. These are just helpful tips. Stress is no joke. And in many cases, to successfully deal with your stressors, you do need to work with a professional. That said, consider this to be just a general overview and a way to get started. But again, find help from a professional if you feel like stress is significant or you've been unable to deal with it on your own. Please do not hesitate to reach out and contact someone for help. So with that said, we'll get started. So thoughts on stress. In my experience, stress tends to fall into major themes. They include some of the major areas. One is time. And what I mean by that is that time is infinite, but for human beings to be able to handle it, we make it finite. That said, it does help us keep aware of things like years and uh, uh, dates and months, and helps us to stay organized. But what that also means is that we tend to stress a lot over time because we know it's limited. We may try to do too much with our time. We also end up having regret based on how we're spending our time. So guilt can come into play. Again, thinking that we are just not applying ourselves, but a lot of it has to do with how we view time. That said, I'm going to have a video dealing specifically with how we prioritize time, but I want to set that up as a major area to look at in regards to some questions I have for you later. So again, time is a major area where we find that we may be stressed out, or better said, how we spending our time. The second area is relationships. Goes without saying. Relationships can be a great source of stress for many people. My takeaway from that is please don't limit it to romantic relationships, but think in terms of family relationships, professional relationships, and then of course your intimate relationships. So stress in relationships can be a big source that you may or may not be aware of. Definitely worth pausing and doing some thinking about your levels of stress in your relationships. Uh, Number three, priorities or not having priorities. Sometimes we stress out over how we are prioritizing our major goals. And sometimes we stress by not having priorities. And what I mean by that is that sometimes we use priorities as motivators, but oftentimes they end up being sources of guilt when we come short of those priorities. So my major takeaway, again, is to take a look at your priorities, or whether or not you have priorities, and how are you using those priorities either to motivate you, or for all intents and purposes, is it a source of guilt and regret? And then of course, money slash finances can be a great source of stress. I think it is a misconception that more money results in less stress. And most people would let you know when they start making money, it can be just as stressful as when they did not have any. That said, money, finances can be a great source of stress. A lot of times we relate that to insecurity. Again, no doubt about it that insecurity can cause people to be stressed out. And then I have, for the last area that stress seems to be concentrated, I have employment slash school. Sometimes employment, it can be a blessing, but make no mistake about it, if we are in a place in our lives where we are working a job that we know we're not a good fit in, or the personalities are so toxic there that they are wearing us out, employment can be a great stressor. Again, I have some tips in all these areas coming up, but for today's introduction to stress, I just want to highlight a couple different areas, or really several at this point, that you may want to look at and ask yourself the following questions. And those questions are as follows. One, you want to ask yourself, where am I in this area of my life? In other words, get real and start to journal. Where are you at in this area? Secondly, am I congruent in this area of my life? And that just means, does your walk match your talk? And what we're looking for when we ask that question is, where are my discrepancies? And sometimes as you identify discrepancies, you actually feel more empowered and sometimes more motivated. At the same time, you may come to the conclusion that certain discrepancies are just hard for you to overcome all on your own. That's a good indicator that you may reach out for professional help. Nevertheless, keep in mind during this introduction that we are just thinking about our stresses and trying to understand them. And then thirdly, does this area of my life that I'm stressed out on, does it just involve me, or does it involve someone else? Sometimes we make the mistake of thinking that it is just all about us. And sometimes it's a combination of you and somebody else that's stressing you out. In that case, again, it doesn't mean that you throw up your hands and give up. It means that you may need to acquire the proper tools. Again, reaching out to a professional to help you navigate that relationship. It could involve having a frank conversation with a coworker at work about why you all seem to be butting heads. It could be just taking a step back and saying, is this even worth it? Is it a way for me to look past this situation with this person or find middle ground? Again, this is just my introduction to stress. Please take some time to look at these major areas and maybe try to journal out some answers to the questions that I posed. And then next time, we're going to kind of break these areas down and get a little bit deeper in regards to understanding our stressors. Until next time, God bless you. God keep you. I pray this undeserved favor cover you to the next time I see you. Take care.